valuable place. And we are blessed this evening to have Deacon Bill Batz from St. Thomas More talk to us about the best kept secret of the Catholic Church. So without further ado, Bill, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Greg, very much. The Holy Spirit, yes, and also my wife, since I'm out every night this week. And I said to her, you don't mind if I do one more? And she said, no, for Mike Gataway, anything. So here I am. I'll do my best. Mike is over here. Mike D'Onofrio is taping this. So I'll do my best to eat the microphone because I'm told that's what you have to do. Ordinarily, I like to walk around a little bit, and I might still do that. But can everybody more or less hear me decently enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now.
You should have on your seat someplace a handout that looks like this, and the title is The Best Kept Secret of the Catholic Church. As you can see, this is a lot more than we can possibly cover between now and, say, 8:30 or so. But it will take one reading for you if you want a little Lenten penance to read this sort of thing. But I'm going to skip. I'm going to sort of hopscotch through this in order to give you a flavor for this particular subject and why it's important and the highlights of it. It's called The Best Kept Secret of the Catholic Church because chances are most of the people who sit in our pews are not at all familiar with this particular teaching of the church, and yet it's right out there. It's right out there. And it's every bit as magisterial, as we say. It's every bit as official. I mean, if I say to you, name an important papal teaching from the popes in the last 100 years, you might say the Assumption, the Immaculate Conception, or the Vatican Council, sort of all those things, all that to be true. But this stuff that I'm talking about tonight is equally as authoritative in terms of the teachings of the church. And really, since the Second World War, I don't think any of us remember the Second World War, but we're all children of that era, maybe women. Since the Second World War, there's been an increased emphasis on this particular subject in church teaching. There have been 12 important documents issued by the popes, 11 of them since the Second World War, so it's really been since then. And the reason that it sort of got started, the emphasis, I'll tell you what this is all about, but the reason it got started was sort of, actually began, believe it or not, in the Nazi concentration camp at Dachau. In Germany, during the Second World War, there were any number of Jesuit priests who very unwisely spoke out against Hitler. And so, in the middle of the night, the Nacht came, and a number of these men were dragged off to the prison camp at Dachau, which is outside of Munich. And they were not executed, they were used as work slaves in the concentration camp, these priests. Their job, believe it or not, was to clean out the ovens, to shovel the ashes of the people who had been cremated, put them in wheelbarrows and take them down and dump them in the river. They did that all day, every day, if you can imagine, for a number of years. And when the war came, before the war ended, in the evenings after work, they would sit around and discuss how in God's holy name did this happen? How in Western Europe, in a very Catholic country like Germany, particularly southern Germany, Bavaria, where Munich is called, how could any civilization turn around and do what's being done here to millions of people? Is this civilization even in any way Christian anymore, in any sense of the term? Well, clearly not. You don't think it was a Catholic, nominally speaking. And so they said to themselves, you know, if we get out of here alive, if we ever do, we have to go out and we have to re-Christianize civilization. We have to re-evangelize the civilization. We have to go back into the cities and towns and the homes and the schools and teach people in Western Europe and in Western society in general how to be Christian again. Because obviously we've forgotten. A number of years later, several of those men who were still alive became periti, theological experts at the Second Vatican Council. And they were very instrumental in publishing one of the major, in being the experts that put together one of the major documents of the Second Vatican Council called Gaudium et Spes, the subtitle of which is The Church in the Modern World. And it's the attempt of the church to go back out into the modern world. John Paul called it the new evangelization, to re-Christianize our secular civilization. And a lot of the documents that have come out of the church, particularly since the Second World War, papal encyclicals, have been geared really toward that. Both of the encyclicals that were in Benedict Paul, both of the encyclicals published by Pope Benedict dealt with these subjects. Pope Francis, just I guess a year or two ago, published his encyclical on Laudato Si. They're all about how do you take the gospel of Jesus Christ and use it to understand what's going on in our society and our culture today and address that and bring the gospel back into public discourse. Okay? In your booklet, if you care to go along, you don't really have to, but you can go on. I've listed all of those modern documents that are listed there, along with things that were going on at the time the popes issued these documents. Things like Evangelium Vitae, which is Latin for the Gospel of Life. Gaudium et Spes, the Second World, at the during Vietnam War era, and so on and so forth. A little document called Sollicitudi Rei Socialis in Laborem Exercens. At the time that Lech Walesa and the guys in Gdansk were rising up against Polish communism and about to overturn it in their own country. There are, in all of these documents, all of these, oh, by the way, you may ask, why haven't I heard about this before? Well, why is it the best kept secret? I think for a few reasons. First of all, these topics are very thick, they're very dense, they're very serious. It's nothing like that you'll ever be able to cover in an 8-minute homily from the pulpit, let me tell you right now. Let me talk to you today about Laborem Exercens. That ain't gonna happen. Okay. So you don't hear it from the pulpit. They can also be very controversial. I'm going to give you a couple of teasers here before we're done. I mean, I'll show you. They can be very controversial. A lot of priests, I think, and deacons too, don't want to get into it. I got up one Sunday and talked about a bunch of this stuff. When I was standing in the back at the end of the Mass, I thought, well, let's see how many people throw rotten eggs at me. But, you know, so there is that. And then there's also this belief, you know, that perhaps your religion is a private thing. You should keep it to yourself, and the church shouldn't be involved in public affairs, certainly not in this country. So for a whole bunch of reasons, we as men and women in the church may not hear a lot about this stuff. But then again, we've heard it. We've heard it indirectly, and you know it. There are 7 major categories of teaching, bringing the gospel into modern, current affairs that one can talk about. And the root foundation, the number 1 principle, and this is in your pamphlet if you care to go along, has to do with the sanctity of human life. Sound familiar? And the dignity of the human person. Why do we as Catholics believe in the sanctity of human life and the dignity of the human person? Is it because we believe in the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights? No. We had this doubt long before the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. In fact, it goes back all the way to the book of Genesis. You are created in the image of God. And why were you created? You were created to share God's very life, to have a relationship with God. You, as a human person, are called into relationship with the Creator of the universe. And it is your relationship with God and your worth and your value in the sight of God which gives you infinite dignity and value. And that's true of you and of every human life. It's not that we hold these truths to be self-evident. It's not that we believe in some sort of a Lockean contract government where we agree to recognize life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. That was the original version, by the way. It wasn't pursuit of happiness. The first version of the Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of money, which they thought that was kind of crass, so they said, Jefferson, let's take that out. Equity and happiness. Same thing. Money. It's not because we believe it. we don't disagree with those principles, but we believe that every human being is sacred in the eyes of God. The Catechism of the Church says, being in the image of God, not just a secular creature or a citizen, the human individual possesses the dignity of a person who is not just something, but someone capable of entering into communion with God. Now, that is the cornerstone. That is the foundation of all Catholic social teaching. If you think that the Church's teaching on abortion is Catholic social teaching, well, I got news for you. That's like saying the cookies we had for dessert are equal to the meal. It's one element of it. Abortion is one piece of a much larger pie, one square in a much larger quilt. A very good square, a very good example. For we believe, as you know, that human life is sacred in God's eyes and no one has a right to take it. Hence our position on abortion. But if you believe that all human life is sacred and inviolable in the eyes of God, think of the ramifications of that. Beyond abortion, think of where that goes. Okay? How about euthanasia? Grandma's 95 years old. Her life isn't worth living anymore. Let's put her to sleep, make her happy. How about embryo experimentation? How about stem cell research? A little side on stem cell research. You will hear it said in things like the Post-Gazette. Those self-respecting fish will be wrapped in the Post-Gazette. You'll hear it said in the Post-Gazette and places like that the Church is opposed to stem cell research. Oh, not so true. The Church is opposed to embryonic stem cell research, where you create a human embryo in a petri dish and then kill it and harvest the cells. You kill a human life in order to harvest experimental material. If you can do that to an embryo in a petri dish, and this has been suggested, by the way, why not harvest stem cells from guys on death row? They're going to die anyway. Right? So there's that. Obviously, torture, racism, capital punishment, war, all the things that touch on human life then become subjects of our Catholic social teaching because we believe fundamentally in the sanctity of human life. From the moment of conception to the point of natural death. First case study, very brief. This is a true story. Mike is smiling. I've heard this one before. I was sitting in my office downtown when I was Secretary for Social Concerns for Bishop Zubik, and a gal called me from McGee Women's Hospital. She said, I have a question. What's the Church's teaching on this? What I said. She said, on snowflake babies. I said, snowflake babies? She said, yeah, you know, frozen embryos. Turns out that at McGee Women's Hospital, they have thousands and thousands of fertilized frozen embryos in cryogenic freezer cases. Okay? Just in case somebody wants a baby, they'll pull it out, thaw it out. Right? Except, of course, did you know that in the case of in vitro fertilization, which is where all these things come from, they don't just fertilize one egg, they fertilize multiple eggs. And they implant them. They save some for later, then they implant maybe 7 or 8 in the woman's uterus. And then as the pregnancy hopefully is successful and moves along, they selectively reduce down to the one they want. So you start out with 7 new alive, and you reduce it to 1, maybe 2 if you decide to have twins. Nowadays, by the way, if you want, we can make sure you get a blue-eyed girl with blonde hair. Selectively reduce. Choose what you want. Do you want a boy with brown hair and green eyes? We can do that for you. Not a problem. Just make enough eggs. Just fertilize enough. But there are leftovers from this process. Thousands of leftovers. Okay? Human beings in embryonic form. And the gal said to me, oh, you know, she said, my husband and I haven't been able to have a family, and so they offered to give me some of these snowflake babies to implant in my womb and see if I can get pregnant that way. I said, would that be all right by the Church's teaching? Now think about that. If she doesn't accept the snowflake baby, that embryo sooner or later will decay and die, even when it's frozen. So a lot of them are going to get thrown away. That embryo will never have a chance. On the other hand, if she says yes to this, they'll have to implant several of them in her uterus selectively reduced later on. I like that one. I like that one. I got news for you. There is no position in the church on that subject. So I said, follow your conscience. She had a baby girl. If human life is sacred, if we believe in that, then we believe in the whole fabric of human life, a consistent ethic, if you will, that applies not just to cases of women having babies, which is a big subject, but it would apply also, for example, in the case of the death penalty. I'm going to test Mike. He's my deacon-to-be back there. Okay, Michael, what is the official papal teaching these days on the death penalty? You know?
There's a new paragraph in the catechism.
Oh, he's good. You're studying well. That's right. As of August, that's right. Pope John Paul used to say it's almost impossible to justify the death penalty. Because there was a time in human history when if you had a serial murderer or a criminal that was so bad you couldn't control him and you let him go, you go right out and murder somebody else again. We've all heard those stories. And if you can't control him, then maybe for the greater good of society, that after he's done it for the umpteenth time, you want to hang him. It's going to be in the dark. But most recently, Pope Francis has said that that kind of a circumstance is almost impossible to imagine. And when we as a society take human life, whoops, it is, we are degrading ourselves. So the official position of the church right now is that capital punishment is inadmissible. That's the term. Now that being said, 83% of Catholics in the United States, when polled, will say they're in favor of the death penalty. Which is all right, because most of them, if you ask them the question I asked Mike, wouldn't know what the church's position is on that. But that's what it is. So we start with that. We start with the sanctity of life, the dignity of the human person across. I wish I had time to talk about assisted suicide. You mind if I do that for a minute? Assisted suicide? Because there are laws pending in a number of state legislatures on this subject, including the Pennsylvania Assembly, to permit physicians to assist people who requested to commit suicide. You can go to the doctor and he'll prescribe the drug, and you go home, take the drug, and say goodbye. And that's it. Those laws are in effect now in Oregon. I'm not sure about California. It's pending in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure that it's going to go anywhere in the Republican Assembly, but we'll see. What's interesting about assisted suicide proposals, okay? The idea is if you are in terrible pain and you are close to death anyhow, why should you have to suffer? Why can't you just swallow the pill and say goodbye? Right? You're in terrible pain and close to death. Well, they've tried that in Holland, in the Netherlands. And that's how it started out. If you were in terrible pain and close to death, imminent, death was imminent, well then, swallow the pill. That was several years ago. And now it's evolved to the point where they're saying, if you might be in terrible pain someday, and death is not imminent, but it's going to happen sooner or later, then you can take the pill. Which means everybody can take the pill. Because you might be in pain someday, and we're all going to die sooner or later. So they give you the pill just in case you want to end it now. And oh, by the way, if you have a child whose life is not worth living because they have Down syndrome, you can give your child a pill. You can give your child a suicide pill without the child knowing it in Netherlands. It's into that kind, reminds you of the guys in Dachau, doesn't it? What kind of a civilization would do this? And that's what the church is trying to bring the gospel to bear on, to say, no, even a child with Down, it's true that 95% of children with Down syndrome and spina bifida are aborted these days. But those lives are valuable too, we would say. We would say, you don't just take a human life. All right. That's principle number one, and I have 15 minutes to go with the next 6 principles. But I will march right along. The other thing that is very critical in Catholic social teaching, and this is also in your Catholic, is our emphasis on family and community and the common good. The church will say that the family is family meaning husband and wife and children, is the bedrock of society, and that to preserve the family, and thus marriage as husband and wife, man and woman, and children, is a fundamental Christian principle. And also that, it's not just about me. It's not about my success, life, liberty, and the pursuit of money. But I have a responsibility to the community and to my family. I'm part of a fabric of society, and I owe responsibilities to that society as well. So the church will say that those being our principles, that if a state wants to establish a partnership for gay people to be, quote, married, they can do that. They have the right to do that. But we will hold the sanctity of the family. You bigot! When I was Secretary of Social Things, I had to go to a Human Rights Commission meeting in the city of Pittsburgh. The Human Rights Commission. And I was explaining some things about church teaching to this group, and I was roundly called a bigot, and a racist and all kinds of things because I wouldn't approve of gay marriage. And I tried to say, well, there's a difference between toleration and approval. We in this country tolerate a lot of things, and we as Catholics love our homosexual brothers and sisters. I know a number of homosexual Catholics. Some of them are really great people. I love them dearly. But to love them as brothers and sisters and to tolerate a lifestyle that you and I might not share is one thing. To be asked to approve of it and endorse it and support it and bake wedding cakes for it is another matter. But nowadays, if you don't approve of it as well as tolerate it, you could end up in the Supreme Court. There was a bishop in Illinois a couple years ago who was actually sued because he refused to perform a gay wedding. I like what Cardinal George said before he died. He said, he was the Archbishop of Chicago, and on this subject he said, I will probably die in my bed. My successor, or one of them, will die in prison. And one of my successors might very well be executed for failing to go along with the secularization trends that we see in our society, this being an example of one of them. Okay. The rights and responsibilities of human persons. If we believe in the sacredness of human life and the dignity of every human person, then respecting human rights and dignity is all about our responsibilities and our duties in society. We would say that, and mind you, what I'm talking about here is not Democratic or Republican. Some of my Democratic friends don't like me when I talk about gay marriage. Some of my Republican friends don't like me when I talk about immigration and migration of peoples. This is not either side of the aisle. If you're a Catholic in the social arena teaching Catholic social teachings, you're going to be very unpopular with both Democrats and Republicans. Okay, you just trust me. And you're not going to be comfortable in either camp. You're going to say, yeah, okay, but I can't. You're going to find yourself going back and forth because no political party in this country perfectly teaches what the church teaches. In any case, we would say that if human life has dignity, then every person has a right not only to life, liberty, and the pursuit of money, but every person also has a right, for example, to food. How can you have a dignified human life if you don't have access to food and clothing and education and health care to some degree? That doesn't mean you're entitled to a life of luxury at my expense, but it does mean that if you're a human being, when someone comes to your door and says, I'm starving, can you give me some food? All the great saints would say, if you have extra food in your house, you must give it to them. If he's naked and you have an extra jacket, that jacket belongs to him. And here's the point that I want to really leave with you guys tonight, because as I was listening to your meeting tonight, this is the one thing that really I think applies to your mental. Here's a quiz. Pick on Mike again. Well, you're doing pretty good. Good so far. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, when I say the word church, let's assume that I mean three things that church does. What does church do? Well, we go to church. The Mass and the sacraments, broadly defined, liturgy. Caritas and Veritate. Liturgy. Why else do we go to church with our children, for example? Well, the Word, the message, the gospel, moral values, teaching our children and ourselves. What I'm doing right now, preaching the Word of God. Okay? So the fancy word for that is, in Greek, is kerygma. It's all the teachings of the church, all the moral and gospel teachings of the church, the story of Jesus, the four gospels, all the rest of it. So I say church, and I say liturgy, Mass and the sacraments, and I say gospel, preaching the word. And when I say church, I may also say the Red Door, collections for Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities is the largest charity provider in Western Pennsylvania. 85,000 people a year. So works of charity, Habitat for Humanity, the Red Door, Family Promise, all the things that were on your list, gentlemen, and all the things that you support, all the things that you do in charity in this parish and in the South Hills where you live, and even beyond. Okay? So, and the church, the church is for example, who operates more hospital beds in the United States than anybody else? Guess what? Catholic Church, Catholic religious orders. Who operates more private schools? Guess what? On and on it goes. We are the largest. The Catholic Church in the United States is far and away, the largest charitable organization in the country. So, church, liturgy, gospel, charity. Which is the most important? One man here says gospel.
Charity.
Anybody want to vote for the Eucharist?
Charity.
Source and some of the Christian life?
That wasn't one of the options.
Well, yes,
only gave us two
it's in
choices.
liturgy. Well, I'll tell you what. That's a trick question. I apologize.
I was going to say one has 33.34.
One third. Well, guess what? Pope Benedict, we're in Benedict Hall. Pope Benedict, it's on the list, encyclical, Caritas and Veritate, said they're all three equally important. Ooh. Are you telling me that works of charity are just as important in the life of the church as the Eucharist? That's the man said. So did John Paul, so did Paul VI, and all these documents. What they're saying is, sure, when Mike and I and other people like us get up and preach the word, we're doing important work. And when the priest gets up and celebrates Mass, that's important work. And when you go out and build a house for Habitat, or serve food at the Red Door, or whatever else you do in those ways, you are doing God's ministry in a co-equal way. Whoa. Sure, there is no such thing as a church without a food pantry, someone said. Okay? If all you do is sacraments, not good enough. All you do is preach the word, fine, not good enough. So you all, who are doing what you do in this men's group, are doing one of the three co-equal elements of what it means to be church. Don't underestimate your significance and your importance. That is fundamental Catholic social teaching, and that's what's on the next page. If you turn to item number 4, a preferential option for the poor and the vulnerable. We are the ones who go out to the poor. And poor doesn't just mean economically poor, although it may be that. It means people who are terminally ill, people who are elderly, people with disabilities, those kids with spina bifida and Down syndrome and all the rest of it. The kids who are blind, the kids with cerebral palsy and muscular dystrophy, the old ladies who are alone. The preferential option for the poor, which closely ties, as I'm running out of time, to, let's get to the dignity of workers. Turn to number 6, solidarity, global issues of migration, war, and peace. All right, here I go. Somebody's going to throw a rotten tomato at me on this one. If we have a preferential option for the poor, if every parish has to have a pantry, if doing the charitable work of God or of a deacon or a diaconal work is co-equal with sacraments and gospel, then we are in solidarity. That word, you know where that comes from. We are in solidarity with all the peoples of the world, including and not only those in the United States. Therefore, if a poor person comes to your back door on a cold winter night and begs you for a place to sleep and a meal, what must you do? You're wealthy. You live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. You live in Peters Township or South Hills of Pittsburgh. You've got clothes in your bag. You've got food in your refrigerator. You've got more than one pair of shoes. You drive a nice car. You have a car. And a starving person comes to your house and asks for food and shelter for the night. The answer, I need to give you the answer, right? Jesus just showed up at your back door. That's all. And you will, and you do, I know you guys. You do respond in the way that Christ taught us. Oh, here's one for you. I'm going to go a little bit late. Matthew 25, okay? The Last Judgment. Remember the scene? Jesus comes again in glory. It's the mural on the back wall of the Sistine Chapel. And he's standing there judging who goes north and who goes south, right? And by what criterion will you be judged at the last day? When you stand before God in judgment of your soul the moment after you die, or at the general judgment at the end of time, what is the criterion? What's the rule? What's going to determine whether you go north or you go south? Matthew 25. Anybody remember Matthew 25? For I was hungry, and you gave me to eat. I showed up at your back door and asked for a place to sleep, and you gave it to me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was thirsty. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to see me. You did it for them, you did it for me. The criterion of the last judgment is not, you know what's not mentioned in Matthew 25? What's not mentioned at the last judgment in Matthew 25? What's not there? Sin. Did you look at the centerfold of Playboy magazine when you were 12 years old? Of course you did. Sin. When the twilight of your life comes, you will be judged on love. I was naked, yet you clothed me. Now take that principle to the Arizona or New Mexico or Texas border today. Did you build a wall? Did you separate children from their families and leave them in fenced-in pens inside of warehouses? If you are one of the most, the church, teaching of the church is that if you are one of the most wealthy nations in the world, if you are a well-to-do people, and poor people show up on your doorstep, you have an obligation to take them in. You have an obligation to be merciful and kind. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. You didn't slam the door in my face and say, there's no room for you in the inn. Now that does not mean that a nation cannot establish borders and enforce laws and customs and immigration procedures and so on. But it does say that the bent of policy ought to be mercy. Mercy. When the evening of your life comes, you'll be judged on love. Notice 20 minutes. Well, here's one last thing. At 8:30, one last thing. If we believe, in terms of this comes under the heading of global issues, solidarity. If we believe in the dignity of the human person, in the sanctity of every human life, okay? See how this goes everywhere, okay? Then let me ask you, is there such a thing as a just nuclear war? You know, where they wipe out hundreds of millions of people in 45 minutes. I don't even answer that question. You tell me. Can you be a Catholic? Can you be a disciple of Christ these days and be a supporter of nuclear war? Or the stockpiling of nuclear weapons? Don't you at least have an obligation to work for peace? So, you see this way here? Do this in the pulpit because nobody wants a rotten tomato. I once had a good friend, though, who sat for 4 years in a missile silo in North Dakota. And North Dakota secedes from the Union, it was the world's third largest nuclear power. And he said, well, North Dakota was the world's third largest nuclear power. He said, in the event of a nuclear war, Bill, what you want to do is grab your family and run into West Virginia to the deepest, darkest hollow you can find and just camp out there. Because A, the mountains will protect you from the nuclear blast, and B, there's nothing for them to bomb in West Virginia anyhow. All right. And the last but not least is something more recent, actually. It has to do with stewardship and care for God's creation. We were given the earth to be stewards of it for future generations. And this is an evolving area of Catholic teaching, but we have a responsibility to shepherd the earth as well and to hand on to our children God's beautiful creation He gave us. That, my dear friends, is ice skating over the subject of Catholic social teaching. But if you go back, it really is, it's skimming right over the very top. And I know there's an awful lot of controversial stuff there. But it all goes back. It all goes back. As soon as you say, as a Catholic man, that you believe in the sanctity of every human life and the dignity of every human person, that is a tremendous cloak that covers a lot of things. It has a lot of implications. And there are no easy answers here. And honorable people can disagree on specifics. But I think as Catholic men, we can agree with the Church and with Christ that in the end, we'll be judged and loved. Thank you very much. God bless you and save you. I'll take one or two controversial Batz.
Any questions?
No? It's late. Heavy subject. Okay, thanks guys. I'll be around.